Baby boomers are coming. The silver tsunami is coming over the next 20 years. This is going to be a massive, massive crisis. You're a 50 to 70-year-old who has a loved one, has a parent who may need this care one day. What's your plan? Are you going to quit your job and take care of them full time? No.
How many of you have rental properties? And let's say you've got a $200,000 property that you're renting out for $2,000. How is it that I can get $6,000 a month rent for that same exact property? It's because of that young lady right there. All right, folks. Sean Higgins here. Thanks. Welcome to the channel. Before we get rolling on that, I've been traveling for 2 weeks. You saw me from Disneyland the last time with my daughter. We rocked Disney. Riding our first roller coaster. What do you think? You have to make a reservation to go into the park.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
and
crazy.
I was like, what? Thank God some lady at the pool where I was vacationing told me 3 days before, because I didn't have a reservation. And the day we were going was the day that we could go in. So, it's amazing. And then we just had a great time and we rode so many rides. When Isabel and I first met, I said, somebody's telling me that you can do this and this, and you just your smile got bigger and bigger and bigger and go from there. So I want you to think about this. Imagine having 3 properties that are paying you $6,000 net a month rent, instead of having the same type of things where you would have to have 9, 10, and 12 properties. Mm-hmm. One of my big things is, how do you reduce the wheel that has to spin to spit off the same amount of income? There's so many opportunities out there. Those of you that are looking to meet us in Miami in June, if you want to go to that, go to my 360 site and get some tickets on that. But Isabel's going to be there sharing some more on this. But I really wanted to give you guys a little taste of how we do that. So let's back up. First of all, let's talk about what is the strategy, and then we'll talk about your experience and how you got into that.
Yeah, so what we focus on is residential assisted living. So senior housing in a residential setting, a normal single family neighborhood where you have maybe 6 to 16 residents living in the home. So these are upscale properties. These are usually luxury properties in nice areas because, for example, here in Arizona where I am, you're limited to 10 residents in the home. Right. So our homes, they didn't start this way, but now they're 10 bedroom, 10 bath homes. They're only between 3,000 and 6,000 square feet. So they're not huge, but the way they're structured and the way we set it up, everyone gets their own private bedroom, bathroom. Right. Well, the rates for assisted living, depending on where you are in the country, is average right now about $4,500 per resident. So if you have 10 people in that home, you're bringing in a lot of money. Of course, there's expenses. So what we teach is for you to own the real estate and the business, not be hands-on. Work on the business, not in the business, right? But when you do this, the way we run it is very passive, very hands-off. We own the real estate, we own the business, we set it up, and you really, they call us maybe once a week to check in. I go visit the properties every other month. It's not really that much.
Once the process has gotten in place. Yeah, that's the one thing I learned. Yeah.
So really incredible.
That's what it is. Now I want to back up. The government is paying for this, and are there fewer or less people going into retirement?
Right. The baby boomers are coming. The silver tsunami is coming over the next 20 years. This is going to be a massive, massive crisis or opportunity, depending on how you look at it. The government will pay, but not that full amount. They'll pay maybe $1,800 a month. Most people are paying this through long-term care insurance, VA benefits, private pay, selling their home, or using their IRA or cash. It's usually the adult children. So when you think about that, if you're a 50 to 70-year-old who has a loved one, has a parent who may need this care one day, what's your plan? Are you going to quit your job and take care of them full time? No.
When I first started doing real estate, I was doing the not assisted living, but Section 8. Yeah. And it was okay, but it didn't give you the return. So when I first saw this with you, I was like, holy heck. So you're doing a real hands-off. Now, you talked about having 3 of these is optimal. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we like to encourage having a 3-pack, because if you're going to do this, why not really do it? So really you can share the resources. And that's why we encourage doing more than one of these homes, because let's see, the caregivers who are working in the home, they're working as if they're a nurse, right? Maybe a 12-hour shift.
Hmm.
So they might work 3 days in your home or 4 days in your home. Well, the other 3 or 4 days of the week, if you don't have a second home, they're probably working in the guy down the street's home. If
Right.
you have multiple properties that they can work some days here, some days there, you can share your staff, share your resources. Someone calls out, you've got a bigger list of staff to play with, as well as the residents. If your home is full, right, where are you going to send them? To the guy down the street? No, you want to keep it in house. So the more homes you have, the more you can share that. We also encourage having different locations and levels of
Right.
homes. So maybe someone tours your most high-end home and they say, "We really want to, be here, but we can't afford it." Okay, don't worry. I've got a home 10 minutes down the road that way. That's $1,000 cheaper a month.
Right.
So you can have options for them to kind of fit everybody's need. We call that having the 3 pack. Yeah.
And I like that. So I want everybody to understand the relationship of why I have not only that she's a lovely lady, and you and your mom. I mean, I met your mom at a conference recently,
Yeah.
and I said, you really need to meet Isabel. She does what you do. She goes, "That's my daughter." I'm like, "Oh, sorry." That was funny. But so look in the relationship that I'm talking about with how cheap you and I are getting properties with tax liens
Mhm.
and tax deeds. So, for instance, I've got a property right now in Atlanta. It's about a $300,000 property, 5 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, but I picked it up for $127,000.
Mhm.
With back taxes. So all of a sudden, your dynamic changes when I'm looking at a property and I'm going, normally I wouldn't do it, but I'm willing to pay a little more, knowing that I can come in the backside and do something like this. Now, do you have systems out there, Isabel? I'm kind of putting you on the spot where someone says, I don't want to deal with any of that. I just want to own the property and maybe lease it out to somebody that does this?
Absolutely. We call that being a preferred real estate provider. So, in that case, you own the real estate, you lease it to an operator, just like you said. You can be charging twice the fair market rent. They usually want to sign a long term contract, not 1 year, usually
Yeah,
3, 5, or 10 years. And the
right.
way we encourage you to set it up is this is your rent, but it's going to increase 5% or 3% every year for this 5 year, 10-year contract. And then there's like an option to purchase at the end, right? Or option to renew. So it could be a really nice way. Also, little to no maintenance. You don't even have to live in the same state that this is. You could purchase it somewhere else. We always say live where you want, invest where it makes sense. You could purchase this somewhere else, lease it to an operator somewhere else, no maintenance for you, twice the fair market rent, long term, low impact tenant. I love that opportunities for the passive real estate investors.
There's just so many things to love about this. I mean, it's amazing because, again, 27 years now in
Mhm.
the real estate market. Another four on top of that, which is I just this is just, especially with what you're talking about with our tax liens. This just
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense, and I just want everybody to understand how this works. So, how did you get into this?
Well, interestingly enough, it started closer to home. My grandmother fell, and it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The doctor's like, she can't go home alone. So we went, she was living in upstate New York, and we searched every facility around, and we were disgusted. Like,
Busted.
ugh, they were terrible. But like, we can't leave grandma here. Like, I didn't want to leave my goldfish, let alone my grandmother, like it was bad. So
Yeah.
we got her in home care, which right now is about $24 an average, $24
Now,
an hour on average in the US. If you need 24/7 care,
do
24
the
times
math.
24, that's 17 grand a month. Like no one can afford that. It's a short-term option. It's not a long-term option.
Yeah.
So we gave her that in the meantime while we sorted this out. My dad found residential assisted living here in Arizona, and instead of just saying, "Okay, I'm going to pay for, grandma to have a bed," he's like, "I'm going to purchase the real estate in the business." He did the whole thing. He jumped in with 2 feet. No one taught him what he was doing, and he just dove right in with the intent to move my grandmother in. She passed before we could get her to move in. But once he saw, number one, what an impact and difference this was having on the seniors, on the daughter Judy's, on the caregivers, he was like, I'm not only having a cash cow here that's making a ton of money, but I'm making a huge impact on
On
so
everybody.
many people. Yeah,
For the
on
families, I mean,
everybody.
look at it. My grandmother's passed. We had to put her into a facility, and it was horrible. Um, Kind of a funny story there, though. She was an ER nurse for 30 years. We put her into a facility, and I came and visited her once.
Yeah.
And the nurse goes, "Can you please tell your grandmother to stop correcting the charts?" So she'd get up in the middle of the night and walk around and go around and do all the charts. And I said, "Well, are they corrected?" And she
Wrong.
goes, "She's actually correcting them." And I'm going, "Let her correct them." And she's sitting there like this, doing one of these things. But
Oh,
she still thought she was a nurse,
that's so
But
sweet. So
what a
yeah, so
great opportunity for everybody. You got the kids that are benefiting because they don't have to have, because there's no option. There's
yep.
no options. I didn't know this was an option until I met somebody that alerted me. And that's when I saw you at the conference. I'm like, oh my God, I got to talk to her. I mean,
Yeah.
because I didn't even believe the revenue that can be produced by this.
It's
And
wild.
it's nuts.
It's
It's
wild,
nuts.
and it's only going up. The prices have increased 79% over the last 10 years. There's 77 million baby boomers. They're not even in assisted living yet. Right now, it's still the silent generation.
Right.
So we've still got 10 years until it really peaks. And that's why I love this so much, because people aren't thinking about it. They're not going to think about it until it slaps them in the face, right?
Yep.
As soon as your loved one needs care, or as soon as, boom, this becomes an American crisis, a world crisis. It was the world war, right? That got the baby boomer spike. So it's like, this is going to be a massive, massive issue. If you can be ahead of the curve, set that reputation, have your marketing down pat, be cash flowing now. At that point, you have choices. Are you going to
Everybody wins.
package? Yep. Are you going to package them up, sell them to a hedge fund? Are you going to pass these as a cash flowing asset? My father passed in October, and he blessed me with 3 cash flowing residential assisted living homes. That is an incredible legacy to leave for your children.
Right.
You know, there's so many ways you could do this to get money now and have a big payday later too.
And then we're going to leave your information down the link below, so they can, if they want to reach out to you and get some more information, that'd be fantastic. Also, we've got an event, like I said, on June 22nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Yep.
We're going to try to get Isabel down there. She can work it into her schedule. But, again, part of this whole thing that I'm talking about is there's not just one way to make money. I stay within the real estate space to a certain extent. I do some stocks and crypto, but my main cash cow, my 7-figure income on a yearly basis is this. And it literally is one of those things that I sat there and went, this is the best compliment I have ever seen for doing tax lien certificates. On top of that, you and I just did a webinar for your students on the qualified plan. So let's just take that a step further. If somebody buys 3 properties inside their qualified plan and does that whole lease back for somebody, you're signing these long leases. And here's the other side of that. If you don't want those anymore, you can sell that cash flow. I mean, because that business that value of that property is based on the revenue coming in. And if I'm getting $6,000 a month instead of $2,000 a month, I mean, that's not a bad hair day.
No, it is not. We have a lot of our students who do that. They just set up the business and then they flip the business. You're really creating something out of nothing, you know? So that's another way you could get involved if you do want to be a little bit more hands-on in that regard.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming on, Isabel. I really appreciate that. Click the link down below. Say like, say love, say whatever you want to say. Leave us a comment. And let me ask you one question before we leave. What's the cows on the back?
Cow print. I don't know. My house is kind of decorated wild. I've got zebra rugs, cow prints, lots of colors. It's just fun.
There you go. I like it. Because there's one thing about Isabel and your mom, by the way. She sat next to me at the last conference. You guys are always smiling. And it's so refreshing, to see, because there's a lot of good things to be smiling about if you're focusing on the right things, isn't it?
There you go. Right. Do good and do well. That's what we always say. So there's no reason not to smile when life is going well.